Are we recording? Are we recording?
Hey, stop it.
Butterscotch
Shenanigans.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 76 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast, Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam. I'm the internet.
I'm Sam to make art and also write things sometimes when I feel like it.
And today is December 6th, 2016. Warning!
What?
Anything could happen on this show. There will be
God.
profanity and just disgusting, horrible language.
Yeah. Just filthy.
If you're a child or if you just are upset by those kinds of profanities, then you should escape now.
Or maybe you should stick around and open your mind up.
Expand your
a little
horizons.
bit,
Yeah.
But
you know?
not if you're a child.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you
legal
should,
reasons.
but you should ask your parents first.
Yeah.
Mm.
PG.
Let your parents
13?
guide you into this cursing storm that we're about to lay
And
down.
if they say that you're not allowed to, just know that they're wrong, and someday in the future you can make your own decisions.
That's right. Like you can eat licorice for breakfast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know
That's
why.
something you can't do as a child, and then as an adult you don't necessarily want
Licorice
to.
is only barely candy.
That's true.
You know, it's only
more
a
like-
little sweet.
It's like sugar rubber.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is mostly rubber.
I think so.
So it probably doesn't even make you fat because it's just not even food.
We better not be getting a letter from the licorice lobby about this. We're gonna.
I heard you talking trash
Talking shit about licorice. All right.
Disclaimer, we are not licorice experts, and you should not take our guidance on
And this
licorice.
podcast is not sponsored by licorice.
Nope.
Though it could be licorice if you want to.
Actually, we don't have any sponsors.
How
How do we get those?
I don't
Is
know.
We are our own sponsors.
If you are listening to our podcast and you would like
Want
to
to
be
give
a
us
sponsor,
money.
we'll just take it. That's
Yep.
fine.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should have like a Patreon or something. Isn't that a thing?
Nah.
People do.
We got time for that.
Then the world can be our sponsors.
Yeah. So we got some news this week.
What's that, Seth?
The Juice Mancy Patch came out.
As we
did.
discussed last week, it's very hard to say it with the correct emphasis.
Yeah.
Everybody just take a moment. Juice Mancy Patch.
Juice Mancy Patch.
Juice Mancy Patch.
See? Just the cadence falls.
Juice
Yeah.
Man C Patch.
The solution to this was in the trailer. Sam said, the Juice Mancy Patch. Got to get that
Yeah, I
space
couldn't
in
do
there.
it. Literally couldn't do it.
Yeah, so that's a big patch for Crashlands. It has controller support, a new sort of magic system thing. We got a trailer, we got blog posts, we got basically everywhere you look on the internet about Crashlands, there'll be some info about it. So then just go there and look at it.
Also, the trailer's pretty good.
Trailer is pretty good. Sam's honed his trailer skills enormously.
Mm-hmm.
He also made a picture of a baby controller with a Bluetooth. And it
For all you
squeaks.
mobile controller babies out there.
My favorite part of the trailer is the controller that Sam created for the controller support. He just put a bunch of random ass buttons and joysticks. Like at one point, there's a joystick just poking out of the bottom left grip for some reason.
I think
it
you can
was
play
a-
it with your palm.
Yeah, I think it was an accurate representation of a Steam controller.
Oh right, yes.
That would have been just a completely flat surface covered in discs.
Covered in discs. Next gen. It's a VR controller.
Very next gen.
Yeah, so that's happening, and we're excited. We actually just hit the launch button about half hour before we recorded this, so probably everything's burning down right now.
Yeah, we just
But we don't
retreated
know.
into this fireproof bunker for an hour to
We
just
went
relax.
we went to the
Yep.
pod cave.
hang out with you guys.
To the pod cave. And by the time you're listening to this, Crashlands should be on sale on Steam, which means we can just say it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or was on sale on Steam because it's only a 48-hour deal.
To get in
which
on it.
And it's possible that
sorry.
you're listening to this podcast weeks into the future.
Although statistically
months.
not likely. if
Not
we look
likely,
back
but
at
it's
analytics.
possible.
And it's
Also,
only going to be 10 buckaroos today, I
Yeah.
guess, for the next 48 hours
yeah,
Yeah.
on Steam. So
Yeah.
get it.
so get it.
Okay, good talk. Bye.
Yeah. We also have a job opening still.
Yep. To
Yep.
the artist position. We are rolling on that one. So we've moved a number of people actually into the first art test. And a few of them were prepping the second art test. And the funny thing is we always talk about how the way we do things is basically building the highway in front of the car as
Yeah.
we go. So
This is
Adam's
true.
actually building the tech we need to do the second part of the art test.
Yeah.
It is almost done, though.
I saw remember Wallace and Gromit?
Yeah.
Remember that shit?
There's this thing where they make a track.
Yeah, there's
for the
a
train?
scene in Wallace and Gromit where Gromit the dog is riding on a little remote control or electric train, and he's holding a box of tracks in his hand, and he's laying the tracks down as he's riding it. And I was like, yeah,
That's basically us.
That is a perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
So once Adam gets the tech piece done, then we'll actually be able to do the second part of the art test.
Yeah.
Which should
So-
be soon.
Yeah, so if you haven't, if you want to apply for the 2D art position, you haven't gotten your name in the hat, just bear in mind that the beginning of it is still open, but we don't know for how long.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I think
don't dilly dally.
Is our plan basically just to, once we feel like we're ready, just close all of it?
Yep. So get your
Midstream.
name in as soon as possible. We have had, like I said, over 200 applicants.
Snooze, you
It's-
lose.
It's quite
And
the
work through it fast.
quite the competitive pool. So yeah, if you
We've
want
got
to throw
some
your
pretty
name in there.
stellar applicants in there already.
Yeah, and almost nobody has peed in the pool yet.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but just you wait. There's
Yeah.
always one.
there's always someone. Also, upcoming this weekend is Ludum Dare or Ludum Dare, depending on.
Ladam Dara.
Ludum Dare. So that's happening. It's a 48-hour solo game jam competition, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
You can also do a co-op if you want to have fun.
Oh yeah, there's a jam portion where you can do it with a team, and also the solo stuff is judged, so you can have your game rated on different metrics.
As if there wasn't enough random arbitrary judgment on the internet.
Yeah, so there just needs to be more of
Just
that.
some more.
I
What
think.
we all want is to be judged more.
I would like
yeah.
anonymous user number 6 to just let me have it.
I
Let me
think
know.
though I would advocate though that if you're an early game dev and you're trying to improve your craft,
Yeah.
then you should be judged so that you can get an outside perspective about things you need to improve on.
I
Right?
think that that's assuming a lot about the quality of the judgment.
It
though.
is,
That's the only thing I'm
but
gonna
probably in this context,
It's pretty
I bet
good.
It's pretty good, yeah.
because you
Because
have
these
to,
aren't just arbitrary players.
say. True. This is a community.
Yeah.
You know?
This isn't,
Yeah.
this costs 99 cents, 1 out of 5 stars.
Mhm.
This is hopefully something like critical review.
And it's also the case that they use this interesting algorithm for judging because they want people to rate games, right? And so if you make a game and you want your game to be rated, then you have to basically they have like an algorithm that sorts games to the top, and the whoever rates more games, their game gets sorted to the top of the rating algorithm for other
Ooh,
people,
nice.
right? So if you rate a whole bunch of
Okay.
games, then other people will rate your game more. So
Very cool.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, so we are going to be doing that this weekend just for funsies. So you should also do it.
Well,
And what are we going to do? So
we'll be
so
doing a few different things.
We're doing a few different things because if you're going to do this, if you do a jam strictly in the way that it's designed, of course, you follow the rules, you get given a theme and you go make the thing according to whatever you're supposed to do, upload it, get it judged, whatever.
And Ludum Dara is a single person jam.
Single person jam. We use jams. We talk about them a lot. We use them for all kinds of purposes. The main thing is that it gives you a chance to tackle a problem that you can just throw yourself an enormous amount of time into in a compressed period of time, which is really good for accelerated learning or for sort of getting a head start on something interesting.
Yeah.
So we use it to explore stuff mostly, and sometimes
It's like a lock-in.
Yeah,
yeah,
it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
We
sometimes
we did
that
this
means
last Wednesday.
we
I
did.
think we didn't talk about this in podcast because
We did
we did.
definitely.
But we did it after the
we
podcast.
did. Wait, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh fuck! I know we talked about how we were going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we did it, and
It was great.
awesome.
Yeah.
There.
Which again is all to say that that doing a jam, just throwing yourself into a project with all of your being, is just a great way to do stuff.
Mhm.
And so when we do jams, we just decide why we're going into it with a clear goal, which sometimes is just do the jam as intended because you'll still get a lot out of that. But even still, you should go in with some additional layers of things you're trying to accomplish.
Like, oh, I want to try out this new piece of tech, or
Right.
oh, I'm going to restrict my color palette as an
Right.
artist.
Yeah.
See what
just
happens.
Change your constraints. Right.
Yeah. Which reminds me too, is speaking of starting new projects. Next week, we're going to start.
Is this a segue? I'm detecting a segue.
We're going to start working on Quadrupus 2.
Yep, we are.
Yeah. That is the plan. We may even start doing it during the jam.
Yeah, well,
Maybe that's going to be our
let's talk
jam
about
project.
why the Juice Mancy patch is such a big deal, because it's well over, like, it's basically 300-ish hours of
400.
400 hours
Yeah.
of Seth programming. It's just Seth's piece of work on it.
Which if you assume I'm working a 40-hour week, which is false, that's 10 weeks of programming.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's a lot of stuff, but it's also the sort of the big patch before the creator one. And it's, in other words, it's the last big patch that Seth has to be extremely involved in. And the reason that's important is because we still have our various bottlenecks as a studio, which means that once Seth is done with the Juice Mancy patch, which is as of today,
We start working on the next game.
exactly. Yep. The bottle has opened.
The neck got fat.
We got fat.
We
We
got
got
fat.
fat old Butterscotch neck.
Yeah. So Crashlands we've passed on to Sure.
Yeah.
At the end of this week, it will now be his responsibility.
It's those scenes in cartoons where there's like the coyotes walking, and then all of a sudden there's like a shadow that appears, and
Mhm.
then moments later a giant anvil crushes him.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's gonna be like for Sure. Getting handed the code base for Crashlands. It is huge. It's years of work.
That must be mildly terrifying.
Yeah. He's gonna have his work cut out for him. Yeah, so that's gonna be fun. We aren't gonna announce any specifics about Quadrupus 2 because even we don't know what it's gonna be.
Nope.
It will
Much
probably
like
be,
a planet in No Man's Sky, even we have no clue what's gonna
but
be.
it will be
there.
better than any one of those plans. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, there'll be more gameplay in it. So that's happening. Before we get to questions,
Queries.
I wanted to also have a brief chat about the idea of motivation.
Okay.
Motivation.
I want you to light my pants on fire, Seth.
All right, so at Pixel Pop Festival
Mhm.
a few weeks back or a month back or something,
It was decades ago.
Yeah, it seems like
We're in a
that
time warp constantly, so I have no idea.
eons ago, I gave a talk about just how to do the things that you want to do
Mhm.
in your life. And the basic gist of my talk was that a lot of people have this idea that they just need to get motivated, right? That they need to kind of get this surge of energy and just kind of push through the difficulties of life. But the point of my talk was that that's not necessarily true. That what you should really focus on is trying to find ways to restructure your life so that you can so you don't have to fight things in order to get done the stuff you want to do, right? So it's the simple analogy is, the person who says, I want to lose weight, and then they keep just a fuckload of junk food in their cabinet, right? Every
or
time
have a spouse who does.
yeah, and every time you open up the pantry, you have to make a conscious decision not to eat all this fucking delicious food.
And while that
right?
sounds super badass, it's dumb.
It's dumb because you will lose that fight every time.
Well, you only have to lose once, and then just basically
And then
game
it's
over.
over. You're like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna eat this whole cake now.
Yep.
So at the end of the talk, we got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Or sorry, I got a question about the idea of motivation. And the question was something along the lines of, what do you think about the idea of providing yourself with external rewards? So, for example, if you want to learn how to make games and you say to yourself, every time I spend 2 hours working on making games, I get to watch an episode of my favorite show on Netflix as a reward, right? And my immediate gut response was, no, this is terrible, right? So that's what I said, basically. Then I started
you didn't know why.
I don't know why. So I started reading.
I know why.
There's a book called Drive by Daniel Pink, which I'm just now starting to read in response to having been asked this question and trying to figure out why I had that reaction. But then Sam has already read this book.
Of course.
So hit us with the.
Sam has read, I think, every book.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I am the library.
So why would it be a bad idea to give yourself a treat for doing a thing that you, in theory, already want to
Besides that, you're not a dog.
do? Aside from the non-dogness part.
This comes down to some interesting psychology stuff.
Oh, shit.
So strap in.
These are $10 Walmart chairs and they do not have seatbelts on them.
Put on your psychology pants.
All right. So the basic idea is that motivation can fall broadly into two categories. There's extrinsic motivation, which basically just means external. In other words, giving yourself a treat for doing something.
We're
And
getting
then
paid
there's-
a commission for making a sale.
And then there's intrinsic motivation, which is motivation that arises from within.
Self-satisfaction.
Self-satisfaction is one of those. Feelings of efficacy are one of those.
Like
Just
doing a thing because it's fun.
doing it because it makes you feel warm and fuzzy. Now the interesting thing is that you can essentially move the degree to which an activity that you're doing falls under an extrinsically motivated one or an intrinsically motivated one. So in the example of I want to make games for a living. So what am I going to do? Okay, well, if it's something like I really love and absolutely really want to do, then I shouldn't have too much of a hard time actually just essentially being interested in doing the thing and deriving some sort of pleasure from making the game and then like showing it to a friend or a spouse or something.
And making progress towards that bigger goal.
The
Because
danger
it's
comes in.
interesting, right?
It's interesting.
You already want to do it.
And the way you could do that with the example you gave is by saying, okay, I want to do this, but in order to do it, I feel like I need to essentially treat myself afterwards. So if I work on it for 2 hours, then I'll go watch a Netflix show. Now, the problem with that is that intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are, from a lot of studies, shown to be actually a little bit mutually exclusive. In other words, you don't get to have both when it comes to an activity that you're doing. So
They kind of crowd.
well, and extrinsic always crowds out intrinsic. Okay. So if I say, hey, Seth, you've been doing a great job. I'm going to need you to do this programming piece. And if you do that, I'm
If you
going to
do
give
it
you
super good,
I'm going to give you a cookie. Now, the problem is Seth is now working toward the cookie,
Yeah, the
Okay.
thing that he wants is the cookie, not
the completion of the
Yeah.
task.
so
not
I'm
the
just gonna get
satisfaction
it
of the task.
done.
So you're going to get it done. And then when the next activity comes up and I'm like, hey, I'm out of cookies.
Well, fuck you! I'm not writing this code.
Exactly.
You go give me
The-
some cookies.
the efficacy with which Seth will complete the task is likely to drop. And then also his ability to actually just generate that intrinsic motivation that may have been there in the first place that we essentially replaced with a fucking cookie.
It's also important to add
He's gone.
that he can also just go buy a cookie anytime he wants.
You could, because he's a goddamn adult. You can eat licorice for breakfast.
Exactly. So,
But
so
again,
now,
why would you?
so the thing that ties together the thing you're trying to do with that reward is super weak and tenuous because at any given moment you can decide, well, actually, I'm just gonna have a cookie now,
Mhm.
and then I'll maybe code later or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So the basic point is that you have to be very, very careful when it comes to things you actually feel like you want to do or that like a part are or that are a part of your sort of life's ambitions. If you start piling up extrinsic rewards as the system by which you get yourself to that goal of say being a game developer, losing the weight, whatever, it's actually highly likely that you'll both have a harder time doing it, and then in the case where there aren't rewards offered, you suddenly will be essentially unable to do it because the motivation that you used to have that was inside is now outside and it's gone.
Well, and I think there's also there's another kind of sinister layer to this, which is if you are coming up with your own reward system, then now you have another thing to manage,
Yeah.
right? Because what happens when you run out of episodes?
How do
of
you
that
reward
show?
yourself for maintaining your reward?
Yeah,
system?
you're gonna need another one, right?
Ooh.
You're like, yeah, once I plan out this next set of rewards,
Then I get to eat a
then I get a
cookie.
cookie.
And then once I do the thing that I planned, then I get to watch Netflix.
So you slowly start realizing that everything you're doing is actually not about the thing you're doing, but rather about getting cookies and eating Netflix.
And then you might as well just
be a
eat Netflix.
robot.
just skip the middleman and just go eat some fucking cookies
And
and
the
watch
fact is,
Netflix.
you'll get just as much work done in both cases,
Yeah.
Which is none.
which is not.
Yeah.
To be
So
clear.
the whole takeaway really should be
If you want to do something, just do it. Shut
Well,
up.
but I think there's an important piece of this, right? Which is that you and we've talked about this before too. You can't just say I want to be a game developer and then go do that because that's not an achievable goal. You can say I want to go watch Netflix because you can literally sit down and watch Netflix. And I think this is where a lot of the problem comes in because if the thing that internally motivates you is to be a game developer, you can't make progress you can just see that shows you that you have
yeah,
done
you,
that.
you can't just instantly do it like
Right.
you can like watching it.
You have to work at it for years. I mean, this is true of any really complicated skill. And so what that means is that has to stop being your goal. You need much nearer term goals that are leading you towards that. So that your planning now becomes, I want to become a game developer or a novelist, or I want to get into shape or whatever. You now set up a set of achievable short-term goals that move you towards that. And now every day when you go work at that thing, you can measure your progress towards this clearly achievable thing that you can actually see how your progress is going towards that.
Yeah, and I also want to say, I think it really just helps to fall in love with the process rather than the outcome.
Yep.
That's really what it's all about. Like
Yep.
if you just enjoy the sort of warm up of sitting down and slamming your fingers into the keys and getting the arthritic pops out of your knuckles as you work through some code and then just losing yourself in it for 40 minutes. If you can learn to enjoy it, then the outcome is essentially inevitable
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
And there's some things that you can do to make that even better. So getting a mechanical keyboard.
Yeah. That's why we all
Oh, God, it feels so good.
which makes the office sound like a, thunderhoof factory or something. It's just out of control.
It is out of control.
And I will say too,
It's amazing.
with some things, it can be harder to reach that state where you feel the kind of inherent satisfaction in doing the work. Programming is one of those things where it's hard to get over that initial hump, I think. Because you know what's possible because you've seen games that other people have made and that kind of thing. You've been using software your whole life, but the software that you can write at the beginning is just terrible. Right?
And by beginning, you mean months and even years.
Yeah.
Of work.
Where even at the, in the first month, you might be able to write something that can take a couple inputs and do some pretty simple pre-planned calculations and spit an output back at you. Right. You're like, well, what the hell's this for? Like I could have just done this by hand very easily. But it's building blocks, toward that bigger thing. So you also have to be able to kind of see the longer term vision, and use that to sustain those smaller goals. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting side thought.
Drive is a good book.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish it. Actually, I probably don't need to now because you just told me.
You can finish it.
Spoilers.
There's lots of-
we didn't do a spoiler alert.
There's lots of details in there.
Yeah. But the summary is find a way to make the thing you actually supposedly care about the motivational thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or if it's not, then what are you doing? Stop it.
Yeah. Quit lying to yourself.
Cut it out.
Let's get to some questions.
All right. Questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. You can ask them with your Bscotch ID or just anonymously, I guess, if that's what you're into.
Whatever.
And
almost nobody does though. So, why would you want to be one of those nobodies?
yeah,
Why you gonna pee in the pool?
Literally. Why you gotta pee in the pool?
And every week we take a good number of these and plow through them and try to talk about what our community is interested in, maybe sass some people because that's what we're pretty much all about.
Yep.
All right,
Drop
first question
some sass bombs.
comes from Map5597 who says, explain the physics/science behind one of your games. So for example, how an infinitely long, perfectly straight cave and flop rocket has consistent gravity/downward acceleration, how the pilot survives turning in Roid Rampage, or why the cluster of asteroids is so big in Roid Rampage.
Okay, so for starters, the cluster of asteroids in Roid Rampage is actually very, very small. This game takes place on almost a microscopic level, and the pilot is shrunk down.
It's like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids scenario.
Because it's actually the case that
So this is actually space dust that you're flying?
it's space dust.
I think it's actually
Yeah.
a cookie that was crumbled in space.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
actually chunks of cookies.
Somebody was eating a cookie and they
As an
spilled some
extrinsic
juice.
reward.
Yeah.
Yes.
They spilled some juice in space, and then it kind of
Because they were watching Netflix and they got distracted.
Like
while
you
they
ever
were
see,
drinking.
you ever see on the videos of the International Space Station when the asteroid's like, I'm gonna have some orange juice, and they like
And there's the
squirted
bubble.
it. Yeah, just like little droplets just kind of disperse, right? So that's kind of what's happening here.
So you're saying that the entire Butterscotch universe actually takes place on a sort of like a kitchen table?
No, just Droid Rampage does.
Okay.
There were some accidents involving size manipulation rays, and but the interesting thing is that the pilot and the spaceship actually maintain their mass, right? So they're super dense, which is interesting.
They can accelerate really rapidly, though. So I guess that means their propulsion systems are really powerful.
Well, they can, except if you think about it, they're almost not moving at all.
That is true.
You know,
Well, let's talk about why is it that, let's explain the physics.
and also they move space, and they stand still, and space moves around them.
Explain the
right?
physics to me behind, Flux's Infinisuit, for example.
Well, there's just a black hole in it.
Yeah, we talked about this.
straightforward,
Yeah, there's a wormhole in the pockets that goes to a Bureau of Shipping storage warehouse.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then as far as the cave and flop rocket, it actually doesn't have gravity. It has reverse centrifugal force. So
It's spinning.
yeah, the asteroid's spinning really fast.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the cutscene at the end, it just has slowed down by then. So
And the cave actually isn't very big. You're just going. It's actually just in a loop, and you're just going through it.
yeah, the
Over
cave
and over and over
is
again.
curved. It's not straight. It's just
Yeah.
that the curvature is so slight.
It's like how you
gentle.
drive over, you're driving over the planet. Planet's curved. So is the asteroid.
You can't
cave. You just
tell.
can't tell.
You can't
'cause
tell.
You're just looking at such a small
Yeah, and it's
slice of it.
basically like the stalactites and stalagmites in this cave are things that can just spawn really quickly because there's really fast water condensation
Yeah.
in this cave.
It's
So
space,
even though
what
you're
happens.
so even though you're flying around a loop, it appears that you're going through different architecture the whole time because you're blowing up a lot of these stalactites by running into them.
Yeah.
And then other ones are just growing suddenly so that the next time you loop around,
Well,
10
they're
seconds later,
organic stalactites.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
cage free,
Yeah.
grass fed.
Yeah.
They
Well, yeah, you go. We
Well,
don't,
what
we
they
don't want
do-
to treat our stalactites poorly.
Yeah, but we did have to put. They do have hormones though, because otherwise they can't grow that fast.
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's okay. So it's
But
not,
otherwise
but
they are cage-free.
the hormones are organic.
They're
though.
cage free,
Right,
super happy, super jacked stalactites.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to be putting inorganic hormones into your
that would-
stalactites.
that would be
That's fucked up.
absurd. Yeah.
Our next question comes from Anonix or An0NX, who asks, do you guys plan on adding proper Windows touch support for devices such as the Surface? I've seen murmurs in the Steam forums, but not sure if it's dropped off the radar. Let's talk about
Okay,
this.
so we're in an ethical conundrum.
Let's talk about this.
Okay,
As developers, as players,
as
and
human
hopefully if
beings.
Microsoft is paying attention to this podcast right now, let's go.
Let's go down this road. Okay, so here's what we know. Okay,
Mhm.
Android and iOS devices use touchscreens, and anytime you tap on that screen, it counts as a click at the location that you tapped.
Seems to make sense.
Makes sense, right? So when we program a game for say Windows, when you click the mouse, we just say, where did you click the mouse? And then register a click there. We do the exact same thing on Android and iOS, uses the same code.
So there's a standard, basically.
There is a standard.
Okay.
So the Surface, which by the way, showed up much later than Android and iOS,
Much later.
much later, decided we're not going to use this standard. We're going to make it so that when you touch the first time, it doesn't click. It just moves your cursor there. And then you have to touch again to register the actual click.
Mhm.
So people playing Crashlands on the Surface have to double tap. And this is true for any developer who wants to make a game compatible with the Surface, which means they have to make an option so that players can manually turn on touch mode. Okay. So this is the problem. Now, for us, we have to ask ourselves the question, should we do the legwork that Microsoft should have done to work around this problem?
Should every single developer in
Should
the universe
every
solve
developer
this?
have to solve this problem
That Microsoft created
that Microsoft
for no
created?
fucking
Holy shit.
reason.
This is what they did with fucking Internet Explorer.
Exactly.
Exactly.
yeah.
Microsoft has a problem. with
Right.
this.
So this is what I'm saying.
You know how
is
much human time has been wasted by Microsoft for
a
this
lot.
shit?
Yeah.
In my initial days of building websites, when I was first learning to program, the task of going in and booting up the website you just spent like 3 days building in Internet Explorer to see if it's
a nightmare.
It was terrifying because inevitably it broke because they didn't adhere to any standards because they're like, we're Microsoft, we'll do whatever we want.
Yeah. And so our approach with our web stuff has always said, don't use Internet Explorer.
Yeah, it just
if you're
literally
looking
says,
at
"Fuck
this,
Internet
yeah,
Explorer."
if you're looking at this and it's broken, it's because you're using a bad browser.
Yeah,
right?
use a better one.
And that's on you because you're being irresponsible.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I guess the problem here is by every developer taking it upon themselves to make sure that they cover for Microsoft's bad
It
programming.
allows them to continue to be shitty.
Exactly. And so we contribute to the problem by solving this and hiding the fact that it's a problem.
So it's kind of like when you see your nephew or something. And
Yeah.
They're just being like a little, they're just kind of being an asshole. And everyone in the room's like, oh, that's just our nephew Steve, you know? he's 6. He's just kind of a mean kid.
Yeah.
It's whatever. And you're like, I don't
Everybody
think
just
so,
laughs it off.
Steve.
No. You got it. You got to
Yep.
look Steve in the eye and be like, knock that shit off. So we were originally, talking about.
I think the thing is we started doing it.
We started doing
But
it. We started looking into it.
Realized that the scale of it again. So again, it took like 300 hours to get the controller support in for Crashlands.
And that's something that a lot of people want and will use.
When we started digging into this whole double tap for no reason situation, it became revealed that it was actually going to take a large amount of time. And again, the question is,
Why?
why?
It shouldn't have to.
Yeah.
Because again, this is also on the same machine that you just plug a mouse into and click and it just works fine like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Makes no sense.
So I think we need to just take a stand here and just say, no, if you want touch support, go talk to Microsoft.
But here's the
about
problem.
this.
Our beautiful players like
They get
Anonix
caught in the middle.
Get caught in the crossfire.
I know.
No,
you know?
we're caught in the middle between them and Microsoft.
Wait,
Yeah.
Wait, who's in the middle?
Who's in the middle?
Because no, we're in the middle because for them to get touch support, all they have to do is go, hey, can I have touch support? And then they just go on with their lives.
Mhm.
For us to create touch support, we have to postpone the next game. We have to spend dozens or hundreds of hours putting this patch together, test it, debug it, and then put it out there. It's very expensive for us, right?
Really
So,
expensive.
That's true.
Yeah.
And it is interesting because the reason that Microsoft got away with this with Internet Explorer is because they had 90% of the market for a while. They could do
Because it
whatever
came
they wanted
default
to do
with
because it
Windows,
came
yeah.
with Windows. And then after a bit of, busting of things from governments and the big pushes by Mozilla and then Chrome, actually pushed it down so it has now a very limited share except in tightly controlled corporate environments. But for some reason, they're behaving as if they still own the entire market for touch devices.
Which is definitely
not the case. Although they probably do own it for touch PCs,
touch laptop hybrid combo.
I mean, the Surfaces are cool.
Oh yeah,
great
hardware.
devices.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that came a long time after all the other touch devices.
Yep.
So you don't get to go trying to set a new standard.
Well, and I would honestly say, I mean, if you introduced like a new smartphone to the market that used this bizarre, double tap thing, people would find it such a pain to port their stuff and develop for that it wouldn't have the software it needed and it would collapse. Right. So, yeah.
So there you go.
I think it's a bad move.
Now you know how we feel about it.
I think we should.
I'm a little upset.
We have better things to do with our time. That's what I'll say.
Then let other people waste it.
Yeah.
Just
the end.
All right, moving
Ran
on.
over.
Glibly. Next
I just
question
had to
comes
get that
from
off my chest.
from Mitron. This is very serious, guys. Bidets in their place in the 21st century. Please discuss. Have you guys ever used a bidet?
That's the thing. I
I've
haven't
never
used
one, but
so
I've
I
heard
can't-
good things.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I hear a story, someone's like, I thought this was this weird European thing. I did it, and it's the most amazing situation ever. I got one installed in my home,
How much force comes out of it? Like, is it kind of like a jet
It must be
stream,
a jet, right?
or is it like a drinking fountain? Like a?
I think it's more like a drinking.
Because how could that really?
I don't want to think about it being like a drinking fountain,
It's a drinking fountain for your butt.
Well,
it's
if
kind
it
of
was
like
a jet, then that would be an enema device instead of a cleaning device.
Well, yeah, you got to walk the line, right?
Yeah.
You got to have enough
I guess
jet
how
force that it
deep
can-
of a clean do you want? I
And
guess
also,
is-
is
I
it
want my
it's-
coal engine.
Also, I mean, it's just water, right? Like it's not like soap and water.
You could probably
It's not like you're
Put
getting
some eucalyptus or mint in there.
yeah. It's not like you're getting a
Freshen
sort
it
of like a midday butthole shower, right? Like you're just.
get the old
I'm
teeny
not
eucalyptus
going to
butt.
take a shower. I'm just going to take a tiny
Take a
shower
bidet.
in a very specific area.
Is their role any different in the 21st century? That's one part I think of this I find amusing.
Well, yeah, I mean, wasn't that
Versus
what everybody was freaked out with Y2K? Everybody was like,
My
once
bidet's
the
not
year
gonna work.
2000 happens, bidets are going to change everything.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Did they?
It's going to be a
That's what
fresh
I recall.
eucalyptus scent everywhere.
I was pretty young at the time, so my recollection may be.
All right, next question comes from French Toast Mafia. This is some interesting studio questions and studio growth questions. The new nanigans are nice, but I'm curious if it's scary letting new people behind the emerald curtain.
For context, we hired our first people in July.
Correct.
So
And are hiring another person
Right now.
sometime very soon.
Yeah.
Growing the studio headcount is the only way to maintain your library and produce more, but the Acoster vibe, which is our last name, seems to be the studio, for those of you who don't know. And then he says, as a command, don't dilute past 50%. To clarify, will you try to keep your Acoster collective influence over the direction at or above 50%, or do you think you'll grow a culture and let that guide the studio with less direct influence over day to day? So kind of the question kind of is like, how do you grow a studio without losing whatever it was that you started the studio with in the first place, I guess, right?
right. Yeah, I think it's it's obvious to say that up until we started bringing new people on, that Butterscotch and the three of us were a synonymous entity because we were the whole thing, right? And so I don't think it's correct to say that without the three of us there can't be Butterscotch shenanigans. At the moment, that's the case,
Correct.
right? But that's only because we haven't expanded it yet, right?
Yep.
So that actually is our longer term goal, is to as we bring new people in, as we hire, to actually put a huge emphasis on reflecting on the stuff that we've done and the things that we believe to be true about our work, about just how to think about being a creative person and how to also be a professional, right? And how to incorporate our ideas about all this stuff into the culture of the workplace, right? So that we can recreate the same kind of vibes that got us to where we are and pass those on to other people. I think that's totally a teachable thing, right? But you probably do need people who are starting somewhere already pretty close. Like we have this idea that like a lot of people, I would say, are kind of like fixed points, right? Where everybody's coming from very different backgrounds and have very different life experiences and stuff. And you can deviate, a ways from that. But by the time you're, middle-aged, you can only deviate so far, right?
There's only a certain amount of elasticity.
There's only so much elasticity, yeah. And so that's kind of where the hiring process comes in, which is like we're doing with these 200 whatever applicants for the art position. And the idea is to try to find people who can do the work, but also who their mindset is pretty close already to the kinds of things that we believe about the world and the things that we're trying to do. And then it's just kind of little wiggles, right?
Mhm.
Just to kind of teach the rest of it.
Like there's
and
also
close the
an
gap.
interesting point here, which is that you want culture to be a self-reinforcing and sustaining thing.
Yeah.
And the reality is still, based on the size of the studio and just how new we are at actually having other people in the studio, is that's not like if we just vacated the premises, that would not be the case, right? So we need to get the studio to a point where the culture is essentially deep enough and there's enough of a tribe here that it would just continue on
Self-propagate.
in perpetuity and
Yeah.
certainly evolve in lots of cool ways, because that's the one really fun part about having new people come in is actually like, I don't view it as a dilution to have additional people come in who are amazing.
It's a strengthening.
Exactly. Amazing what they do. It adds some other dimensionality to it. And certainly it makes it so it's not just us at the end of the day, but that's what the goal is to sort of build this culture that is self-sustaining and can reinforce itself over time.
Well, and part of what will do that is by having very clear brand management and goals, as well as what we're trying to do, which is universe building. Because not only do we want to try to have the culture be kind of a clear, coherent thing, but the whole idea of what we're trying to build here is that it's a group of people who are making cool stuff. And if everybody's trying to make the same kind of cool stuff, it basically by necessity means that it's going to recruit the same like-minded people, and they'll be similarly interested and passionate in the same kinds of things. So by us paying really close attention to the public face we put out, and as well as just the kinds of stuff that we make and how that all feels to other people and making that really consistent, then that can feed back into the studio culture and help propagate that, because now everybody's working in service towards that thing, not in service to us.
Yeah.
Or to the company or even to each other, but towards this loftier goal of making things that make people feel a certain way.
Yeah. And I think it's harder to do at the beginning because
absolutely.
with just the three of us, it's easy for somebody to come in and see what we're doing and how we're doing it and stuff and go, well, that's just the costers, right? Because there's an easy identifier that you can just prescribe to all three of us,
Which is a cop out.
Yeah, which is cop out
But
because
understandable.
yeah, because we believe that with the right mental approach and the right attitude, anybody can learn how to do the stuff that we're doing, and so you just have to jump in, right? And so we have the challenge of sort of creating that atmosphere with the first batch of people over the first few years of studio expansion. But then when person number 20 comes in and they see that 17 other people in the studio have adopted the work habits and mindset and everything that we have, then it's like, okay, it's not just the three of these people that are doing it.
Something bigger here.
Yeah, so you got to create that social proof. So that's the first hurdle. But yeah, I think it's doable.
Cool. All right, next question comes from Jinx Soul, who asks, what's your favorite inside joke and can you explain the story behind it? This is speaking to the whole studio culture thing a little bit. We do a bunch of just weird stuff in the office that sort of like triggers.
Well, some of it is an inside joke. Some of it is just, I don't know.
I think most of it
Emergent?
is not. Yeah, most of it's in a weird emergent property that isn't funny, but that everybody just started to do.
Yeah.
Well,
it's
so
just-
one good
It's
example
a
is-
tradition.
Yeah, it's a tradition. So
Yeah.
Seth had some people over installing solar panels on the house the other day, and they were drilling on stuff upstairs with these really loud electric drills that were essentially like vibrating the whole house and making these really intense screaming noises, like just for a minute or two at a time. And after this had been going on for, I don't know, 10 minutes or so, I think I just started screaming and I would just match the pitch.
Yeah, we all started
And
harmonizing
then
with
someone
the
else
drills.
did. And then the whole office was just screaming. Everyone's just working straight faced and just, clacking on their keyboards going,
we make a lot of noise, actually.
yeah, I think Andy coined it. Was Andy or Michael, one of our jam session buddies, who coined the phrase
Noise
session because frequently a noise would happen in the space and then everybody would try to make the noise.
Sort of celebrate the noise.
And so we do noise sessions. Those are kind of an
Just got to
inside
get it out,
cultural
though.
piece.
It's like getting steam out of your brain.
Yeah, and then
your
the other
brain
one
engine.
is saying if something happens or you're in agreement with something, instead of just saying cool or okay, you go coo, 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 coo. And then when you start doing it, some random person will start doing it because of the noise session thing, and so the whole office starts cooing. Coo, 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 coo. There's a lot of weird stuff going on here. I don't know.
Yeah, my favorite is the that we get. Well, we haven't done it lately actually, but for a time that we were ordering Jimmy John's
frequently.
pretty frequently. Usually, at least
Really frequently.
every day, somebody in the office would order a Jimmy John's. But I think maybe part of it was the reflection of like, I'm eating the same thing a lot, right? And so we started calling it different things. So it'd be like, hey, you want to get some jambly jangs for lunch? And somebody else would be like, yeah, I'll get some jammy jams, right? So after the first week of so much Jimmy John's, then we never called it that again.
No.
And it had a different name every day.
But this also has led to sort of looseness with language again. So taking this idea,
Which is just a habit we have. Yeah.
we just have it anyways. And so now the newsletters that we send out, I've started, instead of signing off our name as Butterscotch Shenanigans, it's just some other word combo. So I think one of them was like boot scooch and shenanigans. And then I don't remember what the last one is.
God, dude, blubber something or other.
So I have a
Blubberscotch.
brief story about this language looseness, because it's a habit that I've had for most of my life. But it's weird too, because sometimes you'll take a word that is concrete, you loosen it up for a while, and then it re-solidifies as something weird.
Which is
right?
basically the origin of every item and creature name in our games.
So I used to have this buddy that I played WoW with a long time ago. And actually we met him at PAX. He stopped by our booth, which is super cool. And he was a character named Frostfell, which I think was a location from the Neverwinter something or other. And for 2 years we played together, and he would log in, and I'd be like, Frostfell, like in guild chat. And then after a while of this, random letters started kind of slipping in. And then it got weirder and weirder. And then finally his name just sort of became locked in at Friestglosen. So then that was just who he was.
Friestglosen.
Yeah.
It's fun to slowly morph stuff.
Yeah, well, and I guess that's how you create a lot of inside jokes, right? Because the thing is now so far removed from what it once was.
Yeah,
that
like it's
only
just
having
just
been
a
on
new
that
thing.
journey together.
If I said to the new person that said, "Hey, you want some jambly jangs?"
yeah, they'd be like,
What?
What's that? That sandwich place? Jorby Jorbs?
Jambly jangs?
What?
Jambly ziggles?
This all came to a
Jonka
head
Jonks.
last week during our jam day, because the idea was it was going to be a jam day. Sam came in wearing pajamas, and we were planning on ordering Jimmy John's during the day.
We called it Jammy Jams.
Jammy Jams.
We called it Jammy Jams, and I didn't know if it was talking about the day itself or Jimmy John's. It all became
Well, then
very
we also
convoluted.
planned to go to the gym that evening.
Yeah.
So
To have some Jimmy Jams.
To have some Jimmy Jams. But not to be confused with Jimmy John's or Jammy Jams, which are the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also after the Jammy Jam, we had a Jam where we did a post-mortem about the jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of jokes flying around here. I guess
You got to be able to keep up.
there's a general looseness with the English language in this place. All right, next question comes from Mitron, who asks, okay, this one had me pondering for a while. Talfight 2 is a twin stick shooter, but you can only throw projectiles in 4 directions. Why that design choice? The controls feel a bit dizygotic as a result.
Yeah.
Dizygotic.
So 2 reasons.
Hold on, I have to Google this. Word.
Yeah, I'm not sure that means.
That means 2 zygotes.
Yeah.
It's like
Or half a
dizygotic
zygote.
twins. 2 offspring born of the same pregnancy and developed from 2 ova that were released from the ovary simultaneously.
So I'm not.
Maybe the idea is like because you have the two joysticks.
Okay.
Right.
All right, take me there.
Maybe one of the twins has their head like on their butt or something.
Okay.
Like something bad happened to
So
the
it's
other twin.
dizygotic, but because the idea is that one does.
One of them is
It's
like
360.
Yeah, you got 2 sticks,
Yeah.
right? One of them was 360, and the other one is like, what happened to this other twin, right?
Well, the reason for this is actually because of the simple problem of if you can shoot in any direction, then you can essentially very easily dodge without any problems if enemies have just one particular attack. So what I mean by that is by having only cardinal directions be the movement, or be the shot direction you can do. That means you have to essentially peek out from behind cover in order to line up a shot and shoot someone. Whereas otherwise, if the enemy, for example, can shoot like a laser across or whatever else, you could just go stand in a particular place where their attack can't hit you and then fire at them from there diagonally.
Yeah. Now that's the official story.
Yeah.
What it probably was that it was probably a combination of things. One was
Didn't want to draw art from.
we
all
didn't
those
want to draw
perspectives.
the character facing diagonal directions.
Also, nobody has time for that. So yeah.
Nobody has time for that. And the other is, I think, a week. Like this was the first full game that I ever programmed from like start to finish and launched it. Right. And it was probably the case that I just didn't have the programming chops
to shoot
to
diagonally.
make. The diagonal shooting isn't the problem. It's making the AI for the enemies able to sort of pathfind and do all the stuff necessary. Because like you're saying, having an enemy just move in a straight line on the X and Y
And
axis
fire in a straight line.
and fire in a straight line toward the player is no problem, right? But having them be like, oh yeah, I can go diagonally. I need to like kind of work my way around this boulder or something. It opens up much bigger problems, right? Because if an enemy just checks its absolute value of the X and Y difference, if it's within a certain amount, then it is either above you or to the side of you, right?
So we're saying it's both simple for good design reasons and also because we're lazy and dumb.
I think medium design reasons, sure, and then laziness and dumbness.
Dream Predator asked a question. He said, "Hey, I was wondering, do you know the game Binding of Isaac? I noticed several similarities in some of your games, and it makes me happy." The answer is yeah. So Tau Fight 2 is essentially a I guess spin-off sort of the style of Binding of Isaac, which is also one of the reasons why you can't shoot diagonally, because I played the shit out of Binding of Isaac for a while before we made Tau Fight, and I was like, this works really well because of the fact that you have to basically expose yourself in order to do damage to an enemy.
How do you guys feel about twin stick shooters, just in general,
I don't play
as a
them,
control
never.
scheme?
Like,
I struggle enormously with them, and I don't know what it is, especially the ones like Tau Fight. Like when I try to play, because we of course have a PC version of Tau Fight, which nobody else has. But
I played it last week. It's pretty nice.
yeah, when I try to play it though, there's something about the twin stick pattern that I just my hands don't like.
Well, I mean, you're essentially thinking in two directions simultaneously, right?
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
moving. And this is the reason why, like, if we have our mom play Left 4 Dead, which is one of the funniest things ever, she can't move and look at things at the same time because of this exact problem. So, I mean, a lot of twin stick shooters essentially get away from this by becoming just mono stick shooters, where whichever direction you're pointing, when you hit the button, that's the way you shoot.
Like Quadrupus.
Which is actually exactly
it's
what
a
we did.
single stick slapper, but it's
But the interesting thing is that everybody, the controls, we've talked about this before, the control programming in Quadrupus is exactly the same as it is in Tau Fight.
as in the code was copied from Tau Fight and pasted into Quadrupus.
And yet, while we had a ton of disagreements and complaints about the control scheme in Tau Fight being problematic,
projectile
it has
weapons
nothing to do with the actual control scheme, more to do with the fact that it's a twin stick shooter that has locked axis firing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? That's it.
Yep.
So there.
Yeah, but I think part of that, but when you do that with a controller, it feels extra bad because you have the full range on a controller using a stick, but you can then only fire in those four directions. And I think there's something about that mismatch that just
It's a little gross.
feels bad.
Yeah, having the capacity to aim but not shoot in that direction is weird.
All right, let's do this last question from French Toast Mafia, who asks, do you think a game could be commercially viable with a cooperative multiplayer only without a competitive component? I feel like games that focus on an us-them dichotomy for multiplayer interaction make more money. Why?
Well, we should start with the first part of this question.
Left 4 Dead.
Well, commercially viable.
Left 4 Dead.
That has also competitive
It
components.
did not when it first launched.
That's true.
And it was super viable.
But anything is viable for Valve
How about Warframe?
because they have infinite money.
That's true.
So they could have made something that nobody played, and they could have just told everybody, "Oh yeah, this is doing great," because we can't see their finances, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also the case
knows?
that
Spectacular game though.
that the commercial success of a game is highly contingent on its capacity to get feature spots on storefronts.
And
It
interestingly,
stands to
Valve
reason.
owns the.
It stands to reason that
Store.
Valve could get some pretty good feature spots.
All right, well, so I guess the two big examples I can think of are Magicka and Left 4 Dead.
Mhm.
So Magicka, if you haven't played it, is an incredible co-op game.
A Warframe.
And Warframe as well as co-op, right? Warframe's there too, and so there's actually a bunch of these that are essentially completely cooperative in nature. Even something like Super Mario for the Wii, the co-op gameplay is just phenomenal, and actually the reason why I think anybody would actually buy that game if they fully understood what it was like.
Yep.
And so I think it's absolutely the case. I think the reality is that you can't make an esports culture, which is where you see a lot of places trying to push any game that has a competitive element to. You can't do that if it's just against an AI, right? Because it's not particularly interesting.
Well, because AIs are designed to be beaten.
Right. And I think
Whereas
the
in
other point,
a player versus player, it's designed so that somebody has to lose.
yeah. Well, I think the other point about games that have two sides that players play on making more money, it also just comes down to the fact that like you're going to have more. I think about if you have 5 people playing against an AI versus 5 people playing against another 5 people, there's 10 copies of the game sold in one scenario and 5 copies of the game sold in the other scenario.
Well, but those other 5 people could themselves be playing against an AI. So that's
What if all
maybe
10
not.
of the
So,
players are
I'm just saying,
AIs
like-
and none of them know?
maybe
No, but I think there's a more important point, which
I
is
see what you're saying. Yeah, that was
which
dumb.
Math-wise.
Yeah, I got it.
math-wise doesn't make sense. But there's a more important point, which is that with a competitive game, it is other human beings who are the content, right? With a co-op game, it is the game designers who are making the content, which means co-op games are always going to be content limited, so they cannot have the same kind of a lifespan that a competitive environment can have.
Correct.
Because
humans are messy and endless in terms of their
exactly
iterations and variants.
yeah, and people can continue to get better at it. Whereas, I mean, like if you take a game, like a really good competitive game, like Overwatch, where even though it hasn't been out that long, the gap now between a novice player and an expert player is fucking enormous, right? And that's going to keep on going up, so that there's still always somebody harder to play against. With a co-op game, presumably it's player versus environment in some fashion or another, player versus some AI that the developers have created. And so the only option is for the developers to keep pushing out content.
Which means it's actually more expensive to make
Which
co-op
means
games.
it's way more expensive.
Yeah,
so in terms of financially viable, again, it just depends on what you mean by
Well,
that.
and I think co-op games they probably without a high threshold for success, they will die, right? Because if you can't keep funding the development, and I think about World of Warcraft, not to say that it's dead or dying, but just the fact that every 2 years they have to put out a big expansion, right? Where they release a whole bunch of new content, and they've got hundreds and hundreds of people making this stuff, huge cut scenes, whatever.
Well, we've also talked about this with some of our own designs and some little, off-sprout projects that we've wanted to make in the past, is that there's a serious concern if you make a game that is purely co-op oriented, that essentially the well will dry up. Because, for example, if you, and this is true for competitive environments too, but I feel like it would feel especially terrible if, for example, when you logged into Left 4 Dead and hit join random game, if it was just you and 3 AIs fighting against zombies, because it's not the point, right? And so it's the sort of problem where, like, if they're successful, they're successful. It's a network effect. It's cool. It's big. If they're not successful, they die so thoroughly that it's not enjoyable for anybody to pick up the game anymore. Yeah. So it's a risky.
Well, the tails are way less stable in a co-op multiplayer game. So if you're financial,
stable, right?
Yeah, right. Unless, yeah, right. So if you're,
there's some hurdle there.
When it comes to financial viability, if your studio is a studio where you can have a launch, develop a new game, and then launch again, and you're not dependent on a really, really long maintained tail for your thing, then yeah, absolutely. This thing's gonna be, it's not a huge struggle to make that commercially viable because it's still launch dependent, just like almost any other kind of game. If you really want to milk the tail out of a thing,
you probably need a competitive game.
Yeah.
Cool. Plus, in a here's another kind of final thought or question about this is, what about the cost of managing the community of a competitive multiplayer game versus a co-op multiplayer?
Well, most things don't have a cost because they simply don't.
Oh, right. Just let it run wild.
Let it decay and turn into horrible garbage.
Yeah, because I know
the primary strategy.
Well, I think there's kind of there's an inherent problem, no matter what, with any game that lives for a long time, or almost any game, I should say, which is the more time people spend with a game, the more they fixate on the things about it that they don't like, right? Because the things that they do like are just taken as a given.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like being in a relationship, I mean, there's always the joke about how the thing you love about someone is going to be the thing at the end of the day that you're like, I hate you because I used to love you because of this particular.
Wait, hit me again with this.
I've never heard this joke in my life.
The idea is that the thing that you love about a person can easily and does oftentimes become, in a long-term stance, the thing you actually don't like.
Oh, so if at the beginning, if you're like, oh, this person is like so positive.
Yeah, they're so positive, so extroverted, and then later on you're like, God damn, like they just never think about
take it down a notch.
The negative side, or oh God, they're so
never
happy.
They're never sad. I hate it.
I can't relate. And it's funny, but it's true. And I think in games it's the same thing. Where like as you get for example, when I booted up, just any of the games actually I played. Now I think about World of Warcraft for the first time. You're just so in awe of everything. You're like, wow.
And then when they go, I need you to take this jug of milk over to the next town, and you're like,
there's
a next town.
And you're like, I'm gonna take such good care of this jug, and you walk it over. and you're like, goodbye, Jug. And then by the time you've
shed a
done
single
this,
tear for the milk jug.
yeah, and you're like, wow, they have quests in this game. This is incredible. And then by the time you get to like the 100th one, you're like, I won't deliver this.
Someone's
fucking
like,
jug.
someone's like, I need you to take this jug of water
You're
over
like,
to
"Oh."
that town. You're like, fuck you. I'm not doing that.
How is there another town? Yeah. So I think
God, so
my
many
point
towns.
is that the simple point there is that the thing that you love about a thing over time can very easily degrade into the thing that you just find most annoying about it, you know? And we've had that with regards to Crashlands. People were like, man, I love the quests. And then at some point I was just like, I'm just tired of doing quests, you know?
Is there an option to just skip the reading part and just like,
Yeah.
can I?
That's just the way it is. It's just how humans work, you know?
Yep.
Some things never change.
Is there a way? Is there a way around it? I don't know.
Nope. Not on this podcast.
No.
We're done.
It's over.
We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the Juice
We'll let
Fancy
you
Patch.
solve it.
Watch the trailer and then tell all your friends about the podcast. Spread the word, spread the love around, and ask us some questions on podcast@bscotch.net. Apply for the 2D art position if you want at jobs@bscotch.net.
Time's running out.
And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.